Morning, everybody. Today we are going to get away from doing inequalities and equations for a little bit. We're going to be looking at graphs today, but we're going to be looking at a certain type of graph. We're going to be looking at graphs that look like this. They have a lot of dots and they have a line in them. What this graph is called, this is a scatter plot. So a scatter plot is a graph used to determine whether there's a relationship between paired data, and scatter plots can show trends in the data. So this one says, if y tends to increase as x increases, the paired data are said to have a blank. We don't know what goes in here yet. So if y tends to increase, so when y goes up, x goes up, these two are said to have a positive correlation. Now correlation just means relationship. They have a positive correlation. Here, as y decreases, x increases, the paired data are said to have a negative correlation. Here it says if x and y have no apparent relationship, the pairs data are said to have no correlation. So no relationship. So if you look here, there looks to be no really order to these lines. There's no line in between them. There's no order in the dots. There's nothing there. So it has no correlation or no relationship. So these ones we have to tell whether x and y show a positive correlation, a negative correlation, or relatively no correlation at all. How we do that is we take our points and we draw a circle around them. Now this one looks as though it's going up, so we could draw an arrow that goes up in between these points. What that would give us would be a positive correlation. Remember, if it's going uphill, if our lines are going uphill, they're positive. Here, if we drew a box or a shape around all these dots, we really don't see anything here. So this one is going to have no correlation. I'm just going to abbreviate that to no core. Here, if we drew a shape around these, this one looks to have a negative correlation because it's going downhill. So this one would be negative. So we have positive no correlation and a negative correlation. Here we need to draw a line of fit for the scatter plot. What we mean when we say draw a line of fit, it means to just look at where these dots are going and put a line in between them that could be about what those dots would look like if they were a line. This one looks like our dots are going uphill, so we drew a line uphill, which would mean we'd have a positive correlation. Here we have to draw a line going downhill because it goes downhill. A line would go in between these dots. This one we would have a negative correlation. This one says add 2 points to make it a stronger correlation. What that means, stronger, it means closer to the line. So closer to our fit line. So we could draw maybe a point there or a point there, just as long as they're pretty close to our line. Here it says weaker correlation. So if stronger is closer to our fit line, weaker is going to be farther away from our fit line. So farther from the fit line. So we could draw a point out here or here. These are far away from our fit line. They really make no sense in our graph here. So that would make it a weaker correlation. Our next problem says to approximate the value of y when x equals 5. Well, first of all, we need to look and see if this is positive, negative, or no correlation. To me, it looks like the line is going uphill. So we can say our correlation is positive. We have a positive correlation because our line is going uphill. Now when x equals 5, so we're trying to find y when x equals 5. So we need to go on our x-axis over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's 5. And we need to go up to our line about where our 5 hits our line. And at that point, there's a point right there, that's about 1, 2 on our y. So our y would be about 2. Approximate means get close, just guess, but make sure it's still an educated guess or it makes sense. Here we have a correlation that's going downhill. If our correlation is going downhill, we know it's going to be negative. Now we need to look for when x equals 5. So x equals 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So 5 is all the way out here. It's going downhill, so we need to try to find a point down on the bottom. Now this is going to go off our graph, so we need to guess where this line is going to hit our 5. So I'm guessing since this is 1, this is 2, or negative 2, this is negative 3, negative 4, negative 5. I would say if we kept going, it would hit maybe about negative 6. Or if you wanted to say negative 7, maybe that would work too. We don't know because we can't see on our graph. But that's why we can approximate or guess and make an educated guess. So negative 6 would be okay. Negative 7 would also work. Alright, this problem says, make a scatter plot of the data. Draw a line of best fit. Approximate the value of y when x equals 7. So the first thing we need to do is we need to look at our table. We know that we have an x of negative 2 and a y of negative 4. So what that's saying is we need a point at negative 2 and negative 4. So we're going to go to the left, negative 2. So 1, 2. And we have a negative 4, so we're going to go down. Go to the left, 2, and down 1, 2, 3, 4. That's our first point. Our next point is -2, -3, so we're going to go to the left -2 and down -3. So the left 2, down 1, 2, 3. We'll have a point there. Here we have a -1, so again we're going to the left, and a -2, so we're going to go down. So -1 and -2. Now we're just plotting all of these points first before we do anything else. Here we have 0, so we're not going anywhere, but we do have a -1, so we're going to go down 1. So 0, -1. Here we have a +1, so instead of going left, we're going to go right. And a 0, so we're not going to go anywhere. So we're going over 1 and down 0. +1, so we're going to the right. Now we have a +2, so instead of going down when we had a negative, we're going to go up. So over 1, up 2. Here we're going to go over to the right 2 and up 1. Over to the right 2 and up 1. So those are our points on our scatter plot. If we were to draw a circle around these or a shape around these, it looks to me like our graph is going uphill. So we can draw a fit line that's going uphill. This fit line looks to me like it's positive, so our correlation will be positive. Now the last part says, approximate the value of y when x equals 7. So we're going to need to go over to 7, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we're going to need to go up until we think that's where our line will cross. So if we continue our line here, we could say it'd be about there. So it would be up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So our y could be about 6 maybe, or 6.5, or 5.5, something close to 6, something close to that line right there. So our correlation was positive. When x would equal 7, y could equal 6. Again, we're going to graph this. So the first one says -4 and 7. So if it's negative, we're going to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's positive, so we'll go up. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's our first point. -4 and 7. Our next point is -3, so we're going again to the left. +5, so we'll go up. So -3, 5. So over 1, 2, 3. Up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here we're again going negative, so the left. And up 6. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, we're going to go over to the left 2, and now we're going up 3. Over to the left 2, up 1, 2, 3. This one we're going over to the left 1 and up 4. So left 1, up 1, 2, 3, 4. Here we're not going anywhere, we're staying at 0, but we're going up 2. Here we have a positive 1, so instead of left, we're going to go right. And we have a positive 1 on our y, so we're going to go up. So over 1, up 1. If we were to draw a circle around all of these points, it looks like our circle is going downhill. So we could draw a fit line through the middle of our points. That would be about like that. So now it says to approximate the value of y when x equals 5. So we need to go over on our x-axis to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we need to go down until we would maybe hit our line. So 1, 2, 3, 4 maybe. So we'll say y is about 4. Our correlation here is going downhill, so it's negative. With a negative correlation, y is about 4 when x equals 5. Here we're actually looking at a couple graphs that were taken, or some studies that were taken. It says, describe the correlation of the data graphed in the scatter plot. So it says, using the scatter plots, predict a reasonable test score for 4.5 hours of studying and 8 hours of television watched. So first of all, we have test scores on our y-axis and hours studying on our x-axis. The first problem says to predict a reasonable score for 4.5 hours of studying. So we need to go over to 4.5 on our hours studying axis. We would have 1 here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Now 4.5 is somewhere between 4 and 5. It's right in the middle of 4 and 5. So if we went up, we would need to find a spot that's about in our scatter plot. So maybe about there. To me, that looks really close to 70. So maybe about 4.5 hours of studying would give you a 70 on your test. So we could say 4.5 hours studying equals 70 on the test. One and a half hours studying was 70 on the test, or we could just say y equals 70. Our next problem says find the test score after watching 8 hours of television. So again, we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So we're looking for 8 hours of television watched. So under the television watch side, we're looking for 8. So we have 8, and then we're going to go up until we hit our scatter plot, or our first dots. So maybe about there. Here on our test scores side, we start at 50. We have this weird little symbol here. What that means is we're jumping from 0 to some number. In this case, we're jumping from 0 to 50. So we don't have to write all of those numbers out on our graph. So here we're jumping from 0 to 50. If this is 70, that must mean this is 60. Then 70 and 80. So in 8 hours of television watched, we're going to be at about 60 for our test score. So we're going to get about 60. So y equals 60. You could say 60 score on test. Just as long as you know at 8, we would get about a 60 on our test. So if you spend more time studying and less time watching TV, you're going to get a better score on your test. Maybe just something to keep in mind. Alright, those are our notes for today. Make sure you go and grab a worksheet, and we'll see you tomorrow.